I'd say Mickey more because he was the original social network and he was the original Facebook. I mean, in terms of his networking capacity and stuff like that. So I think from him, I learned about one connectivity, how important, I mean, and also reciprocity and generosity. Because Mickey, I mean, I remember he would always, he'd like always have people call me for like put together itineraries for them all around Miami, friends of his from all over the all the time from all over the world. And I'm going, oh my God, why are you asking me to do this? And then because he was always asking people for introductions. And so he was always a connector, but he was so generous. Like if somebody said to him, who do you know? He would sit down and spend days, just the importance of connectivity, networks, and being generous about, sharing your networks and putting people in touch and always willing because it comes back and that you can never, and then he never ever felt guilty asking people for anything. I mean, not for money, but like if he was going on a trip somewhere and he wanted some to see something or access, because he was always so generous and offering to do the same thing. I think politically and from a city perspective, Maurice Ferre. I mean, because I worked for the city when he was mayor and he had a big vision for the city. And I think because I resented being in the city, I came back and I stayed here. And even in those days, I was still involved in that relationship and when I got that job for the city. But I really became interested in the fact that somebody could think that Miami would be something other than a small town. So I think the possibility of the city, and also the Latinness of the city was very appealing to me. And Maurice, and working for the city. So I would just say, even just the everyday people I worked with, community leaders, I mean, learning so much from them. And, because really, if you have a museum or have an organization, nobody's interested in it and it doesn't relate to them, then what's the good of doing that? So I
Mm.
think, politics, community and stuff, I learned a lot about that from just my job with the city. And the city manager at that time, Joe Grassi, was just brilliant. And also he was as much interested in running a good city as he was culturally sophisticated. And so the idea that you could be, culturally sophisticated and also grow. So I think the combination, he and then really Maurice because of the big vision. And Mickey was a big vision person. So I was always appealed to people who dreamt big and never believed anything was impossible. They just were unstoppable.
Mm.
Um, I mean, there were so many museum directors, but again, I didn't come out of the museum world. And in a way, I worried about whether, Mickey's asking me to do this on an interim basis was a good thing because I didn't really, have the experience in museums and maybe, that could really set the Wolfsonian back. But in the end, I felt like, what was good was I never thought I had anything to lose. I didn't have a reputation to lose because I didn't have a
Mm.
reputation. So I think the idea of like, you can't lose something that you don't have. So I didn't worry. I mean, I wasn't really connected to the other museum directors. We weren't part of that association. But after I was at the Wolfsonian for 2 years, I was invited to become a member of the Association of Art Museum Directors. Um, but again, so I think really the former director put a museology program, proper care of the collection in place. Mickey was making connections with scholars around the world, and I learned that from him how to navigate. And I think just my international curiosity, and I always traveled, so I knew how to navigate places, whether it was local, and then I learned that from him too. I mean, how you can go into a place you don't know and just begin to, find one or two connections or points of connection. And from that, how you create a network. And so that helped me navigate everything. I mean, it was like a metaphor for everything. And so I mean, again, I always appreciated, and it was like I didn't ever try to model the Wolfsonian on another museum because Mickey was so against that. And then I
Mm.
recognized it was like, I mean, from the very beginning, I mean, the press was writing about it in such a weird way. Zaha was really influential because she was a good friend. I met her through Mickey in the 1980s, and she was also such a big thinker. and
Mhm.
she was doing things before anybody. I mean, she was defining architecture before it even could be physically defined because the technology didn't exist.